Good morning. Can you hear me okay? Yes, my name is Sophia Dunkley. I am the lawyer for the applicant as well as the agent for the owner of the building.
Mr. Chairman, I don't need a full presentation, but I would like a clarification as to is any of the existing building currently used as a place of worship, and are we expanding that use, or is none of the existing building used for as a place of worship at the present time?
Yes, so at the present time, it is being used as a place of worship. It has been demarcated about 495 square feet is where the worship occurs, and the other parts of the building are used for offices and administration of the charity. There is no current plan to do any further expansions at this time.
So the 400 square meters of worship area is what you're before us for today, is that correct?
With regards to the place of worship, because we are speaking of the parking issue, which does ask us for what is the square footage of the place of worship, but we are also trying to submit a building application to make internal renovations to accommodate worshipers for the bathrooms, and that is the interior renovation that's on the application.
Okay, the reason for my question was to just understand that parking issue. The evidence is that there are no parking problems at the present time, and I wanted to determine if at the present time where there are no parking issues, there is the amount of worship area available that there would be should this application be approved. And in which case, I think the argument about parking is really sound. I'm just trying to get my head around whether the lack of any parking issues is in the presence of some worshiping already going on in the building.
Yes, it is. It's happening, and this is the level that we expect it to be at.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful.
Thank you.
Chair, unless my colleagues have another question, I think this is a fairly straightforward one. I think it's an excellent repurposing of the use for ground floor retail for a place of worship. This area is well served by public and paid parking as well. I don't see it as being an issue. It's more of a surge kind of relationship with, when services are being held. I don't think it's a constant thing. So I would be happy to move a motion to approve this application. I don't believe there are any conditions.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Clay, and I really agree with the same points that he's made.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. It's David Bronskill here acting as agent for the applicant. And just for the record, I'm at Goodman's LLP. Our address is 333 Bay Street, and I think all of our other contact information is with committee staff. I'm actually here, sir, with the committee's indulgence to request a deferral. Yes? Okay. No, I will. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will make sure I speak a little louder. I'm actually here with the committee's indulgence to request a deferral. And I think those speakers on the line are aware of that request. I apologize if they're not. We did indicate to the ABC Residents Association yesterday that we would be seeking the deferral. And I believe that the architects did reach out to some of the neighbors to indicate that we would be requesting the deferral. I can honestly tell the committee, I don't know that we got to everybody, and I apologize in advance if there are some on the line today who were not aware that we would be seeking the deferral. If I could just briefly give you the background and the basis for the deferral request. There's two things, Mr. Chair. One, we did get some comments from heritage staff somewhat later in the process. There was an initial email from them that indicated no concerns. They did then subsequently raise some concerns, and some revisions were made to the plans that now have, I believe, a memo in front of you from Heritage in support. But it did mean some revisions, frankly, later in the process that in these times are a little bit difficult to get out and explain to the community. The second piece, though, my understanding is even with those concerns, even with those revisions, there are still some concerns from residents on the street and from the ABC Residents Association. There have been some discussions. We would respectfully request an opportunity to continue those discussions and see if we can't address some or all of the concerns of the residents on the street and the resident association. We think that's a better result than proceeding with the hearing today, and frankly, win or lose, it might then end up at TLAB in an appeal anyway. We'd prefer to see if we can have some further discussions with the residents and see if we can't make some changes that ultimately mean that we're coming forward with a resolution. I don't know, obviously, with 100% certainty that we can do that, but we would appreciate the opportunity to do that. And I would thank the residents in advance because I think some have expressed already a willingness to do that, and we're appreciative of that willingness. So that's the basis for the deferral.
Calling. Goodbye.
Good morning. Yes, I agree. I live at 16 Bishop, which is the west side abutting neighbor. I agree. I am in favor of deferral.
This has been an extremely confusing process. We don't have the up-to-date information. Many changes made, so absolutely in favor of deferral.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. I'm also in favor of a deferral.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. I am in favor of deferral.
Sorry, if I am here, this is Sylvia Schumacher speaking. I've just figured out how to unmute myself, and I am in favor of deferral. Sylvia Schumacher. I was mute. Yes, I am. Thank you.
Yes. My husband, John Huxley, will speak on my behalf.
Yes, we are in favor of the deferral. Huxley, Huxley.
There, can you hear me now? I believe a deferral in this case is appropriate. There are unresolved issues that the applicant is willing to try and resolve. The community seems to also be willing to negotiate, and on that basis, hopefully a deferral will result in a project that more people can embrace. On that basis, Mr. Chairman, I would like to move and approve. I would like to move that the application be deferred.
Chair, I'm happy to second this one, but I wouldn't mind just a quick question to Mr. Bronskill after we vote.
Yes.
In favor.
Yeah, I just want to ask Mr. Bronsko. I know he's quite familiar with all matters related to this, and when I was reviewing this application, this might be helpful when it comes up again next. But there was a lot of reference to the Yorkville Triangle Heritage District and some concerns about the applicability of that provision relative to the zoning, relative to the OP. And I wonder, so could you just give me
Yeah, my apologies through the chair. I also had that choppy reception of
that
Mr.
could be
Clay's.
me, guys. My internet connection is pretty sketchy. It's not doing well.
Plug the telephone. Do as I say, and I'll go unplug the downstairs. Unplug the telephone. No. From the no.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. Yes, that's correct. The applicant is requesting a deferral. Yes, there was a glitch in the computer system in the zoning department, and it removed a condition which would require a variance, and it was too late to circulate that information and the additional component to the zoning notice with neighbors, etc. So, and it is kind of a critical one. It's to do with lot coverage. Correct. Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Ramla Nadeem. I'm speaking on behalf of Rana Siddiqui and Asifa Nadeem, and I'm in favor of a deferral. Yes, please. I'm in favor of a deferral.
I'll move a motion to defer this application.
Call Bram and just see. Can you hear us now? Okay, so sorry. All right, so Richard Wengel, 102 Avenue Road. All right, if we could I'll try and do it in 3. Could you just please bring up our presentation material? And what I'd like you to do, please, is to turn to page 2. Thank you. So this is a proposal for an addition to an existing home. The home has a heritage status as it was recently designated. This was originally before the committee to redevelop this property into 2 dwellings, but then it was decided by Heritage that this house had heritage preservation status, so it's now been designated. Our proposal is very simple. What we're going to do is there's an original addition that's labeled in blue at the back of the corner of the property, and our intent is to remove that addition and replace it with a new addition that squares off, and that combines the blue with the diagonal shading to the left of it. And you can just see that we're squaring off basically the addition. With that as well, that we are proposing a rear deck that's elevated because the ground actually drops off towards the back. It's a walkout lot. We have been in discussions with neighbors at number 8 Gardner who had some concerns on the depth of the deck. Originally it was at 20 feet, and we've agreed with him to reduce the projection from the main rear wall to 14 feet. In addition to that, there will be some privacy screening along the rear property line, as well as some drainage issues that emanate from some other lots that we're going to try to resolve with our builder. If I can just take you to page number 3. Again, we are asking for an FSI of 0.72. This is an illustration of all the committee applications that have been heard in the area in the same zoning designation of 0.65 that have been approved at or above what we are suggesting or requesting. And I think we fall well within the range. Page number 4, please. And if we just look to the top 2 images are the existing home. In the middle of the page, there's actually a drive under where we do have 2 garage spaces. And on the right side in the middle where that circle is, that's the original addition. And if we just scroll down a bit more, you can see there's also an old structure that we're going to repurpose as a cabana. So essentially we're replacing that addition that was added on, we think probably in the 70s, and just putting a new, more fulfilling addition. And if we just go to the next page, the green is the existing home, the gray shading in black and white is the proposed addition on the back corner of the house. And the next page, there's the other view that shows from the rear, that will just show the from the side, that shows the addition and the deck. I think it does pass the board test. I do believe it's minor in nature, and I can answer any questions that you have. Thank you.
Good morning. Mark Davis. My concerns have been addressed, and I'm in agreement with the revised proposal.
So I believe the variances are minor in nature, and so I would like to move approval of the variances subject to conditions from urban forestry and heritage planning.
Yeah, I'll second that. I must say, when I was originally reviewing this application, I was concerned a little bit about the depth, but then I think the applicant has satisfied some of those concerns. And also I noticed that it's a huge side lot as well. And so in terms of the actual lot size, I don't think the proposal is not in keeping with the lot and the surrounding neighborhood. So I would happy to second Nimrod's motion.
Mr. Chairman, before we vote, could I ask Nimrod if he'd be open to a friendly amendment that the existing rear detached shed is not to be used for habitable purposes? My only concern with this application would be if the shed became a dwelling unit.
Sure, that's fine. So if we can add that condition to that the exactly as Carl had mentioned.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Ashley Abraham. I am the agent for the application.
No. Mr. Chairman, I don't know if it's a question for the applicant or for the staff, but you mentioned that there's a planning report. What I have is a memo from Ryan Santiago in planning saying that he would be submitting a report with conditions, and I don't have that in my package. Is there a report with conditions? Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I think this is a very straightforward application. I personally don't have any difficulties with it. If my colleagues agree, I would like to move a motion of approval of the application subject to forestry condition number 2, and there is a standard heritage condition that's also recommended.
No, I'd like to add to that if possible. Carl, I'm wondering, I'd like to suggest if we could add a further condition to tie the approval to the site plan drawing A-1.0.
Yep.
The proposed south side elevation A-3.4 and proposed north side elevation A-3.6. It's more really to capture this cantilevered garden contraption kind of that is in the front and to tie that down.
I agree with that. That's a good idea.
Okay, thanks for letting me know.
Good morning, Ali Shokeri, 326 Shepherd Avenue East. Good morning, Ali Shokeri, 326 Shepherd Avenue East. Do you hear me well, sir? Well, I wish to defer the case, Mr. Chair, and we've seen the opposition registered, and we wish to have more time to address those oppositions. So, in that sense, I wish to ask for a deferral.
Can you hear me, Mr. Chairman? Good morning. It is Peter Higgins of Peter Higgins Architect Incorporated. Good morning. Yes, I'm representing the neighbors next door, Anna and Irene, and they at 201 Rosedale Heights Drive, and beg your pardon, this is Peter Higgins of Peter Higgins Architect at 124 Merchant Street, Suite 204. Yes. We agree to the deferral and think it's absolutely necessary.
Yes, can you hear me? Jeremy Gowan, I'm a director of the Moore Park Residents Association, and we review all applications to the committee. Okay, can you hear me now? We agree to the deferral. Yes.
I have a question for the applicant before we vote. I don't see the purpose of a deferral if what we're going to end up with is ultimately the same application again. The planning department report is really quite condemning and suggests that the only way in which this application or in which development of this site could move forward would be with a substantially altered development proposal. Is the applicant prepared to look at substantial changes to the development? Is that the reason for the deferral?
Yes, very, very good question. Yes, of course, the intention of deferring the case is obviously making changes that addresses the concern of the neighbors and the objection parties. So if I'm sure you've noticed, we are asking for just one sole variance. That's the side yard, and that side yard is required to be 1.2 meters, and we're asking for 0. The reason we have asked for that 0, we have reasons. I don't want to basically take your time for that, but between 0 to 1.2, there are different side yards. Maybe, I mean, we have to speak with all of these objecting parties. I see objections from like a kilometer away, and I mean, we have to see what makes their concern. But in any ways, yes, of course, we are open to make changes, and it can be those changes perhaps might, I mean, it might change the number of the variants, or it might change the form of the proposal in a way that's more satisfactory to basically everybody that has objected to this. So in that sense, I think I'm glad that I heard the other speakers are agreeable to the deferral, and we feel that that's necessary. Yes, I do understand that. Thank you very much for mentioning it.
Mr. Chairman, with that clarification, I'd like to move deferral of the application to allow the applicant the opportunity to negotiate changes that would address the concerns of the community and the reporting agencies.
I'm happy to second. I think these are the situations where when you get these kind of deferral requests that the process can and perhaps should work to resolve some of these outstanding issues. So I think it's a great idea to defer. So I'll second it.
Yes, good morning, Chairman and members of the committee.
I just had a question. I know that community planning indicated that there was a resolution with the applicant on a revised set of numbers, if the applicant can clarify that. Are you able to hear me now? Okay, so community planning report indicated there were revisions to the numbers and that the applicant was agreeable to that. If they can just clarify that.
Absolutely. Since the application was submitted, the plans were revised to respond to City Planning's comments. In particular, the application no longer seeks to infill the entrances located at the northeast and southeast corners of the building. As a result, the amount of additional GFA that is being sought was reduced. And the variances that reflect that reduction in GFA are reflected in City Planning's notice. Absolutely. So with the original application, we were looking for an additional 85.13 square meters of GFA. That has been reduced by 43 square meters, now seeking an additional 42.13 square meters. As a result, how that changes the variances, under the 569 variance, the altered building will have a floor space equal to 11.058. That was the original application, and through what has been revised, that floor space index has been reduced to 11.03. So originally we were seeking the total total area of the building would then be increased. It would be 17,312.07. That has been reduced to 42 square meter or 43 square meters less than that. So that is 17,269.07 square meters.
So I believe the variances are minor in nature, and so I'll move approval of the variances as amended with no conditions. So I thought the staff report condition was simply the revision to the number. So maybe just someone can double check that.
Nimrod, there's one additional part on the planning report. It says that they're recommending that the proposal be constructed substantially in accordance with the plans received by city planning. It's just staff, it's in their recommendations?
Sure, so let's add that. That would be great.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Yes. Yes, my name is Jeremy Knoll, and along with my wife Jennifer, I'm the homeowner of 24 HASLETT Avenue.
Yes, so there's only one variance, and it's for parking, and I believe it is minor in nature, and so I would move approval of the variance subject to urban forestry conditions.
Yes, good morning, Chair and members of committee. My name is Jim Sod, or James, representing the owner. I'm the agent from Paradigm Architecture and Design. Okay, thank you. Essentially, there's just the two variances. I'm actually going to start with the parking variance. I think that's more than straightforward, given that there is boulevard parking available. It is an urban downtown site, and there is public transit readily available. The application at hand is to request a very small increase in the floor area of a secondary suite. This is a second secondary suite, if you will, for a total of 3 suites or 3 dwelling units within the main building. Yes, there is an application that was previously applied for a laneway suite as well. All shouldn't say as of right, I should say in keeping with the 4 tests. I think that this also very minor in nature application meets all of the 4 tests as well. And it's our hopes that with the 5 letters of support that we have from neighbors at 32 Beaconsfield, 42 Beaconsfield, 40 Beaconsfield, 34 and 38 Beaconsfield, that committee would find this also a very minor application worthy of granting.
That's me. Can you hear me okay? Randall Kerr, 18 Beaconsfield Avenue. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm a longtime resident of Beaconsfield. I'm concerned about the commercialization of the housing in our neighborhood. This application particularly caught my attention because the work has been ongoing at that site for several years now. It's duly noted that there was a laneway suite application and proposal that was approved. You mentioned that already. That application, particularly associated with the construction at this site, granted several exemptions, far exceeding the bylaw standards for laneway suites, but that is what it is. It's done now. This conversion of residential housing in our neighborhood is putting pressures not only on the neighborhood itself, because some of this housing is sort of set up for more transient residents and tenants. In other words, not long-term residents. That's what our feeling is here, or my feeling particularly. This particular property has already established the fact that they've built, and I sent a copy of the rental posting last year for this requested secondary suite. It's already been on the market. Certainly the laneway suite, when it's built, will be on the market at somewhere near that type of rental unit pricing, and I don't think it's helping out the affordability of the neighborhood for established residents and tenants. The rents keep going up in this area. Tenants keep moving out. We've got empty houses that are under construction or renovations for periods of a year plus within a stone's throw of that particular property. So this is an ongoing problem, but I want to speak particularly to the parking issue. 2 cars parked, it looks like the proposal is to park them in the laneway suite once it's built. So in the meantime, while that's being built, could be 6 months to a year at the typical rates that we've seen in the neighborhood. That's going to put pressure more on on-street parking. On-street parking on Beaconsfield, Dovercourt, Northcote, Lisgar, the entire area is under extreme pressure because of the bars and the restaurants on Queen Street, even on Dundas coming south. There is no parking on the street, so this is just going to add to the problem. And then once that laneway suite is built, those parking spots underneath, are they safe? Are tenants going to feel safe in having cars come and go every day, several times a day, if in certain days when you're living above it? They just had that incident on Bloor Street where the carbon monoxide issue came to the forefront of being parked under a space that's operating motor vehicles, even if they're just being warmed up for a few minutes. Anyway, I can't understand why the 3 spots can't be maintained, 3 parking spots, even if the they don't use the 2 parking spots in the laneway suite. At least they use one in the front, maybe a boulevard parking requirement. But they've done away with the driveway portion of that. If you can see from that that PDF I sent you of the shows you the lot a little more clearly, because they haven't cemented it in, or haven't put in some friendly. Say you're finding it. It's a PDF. Getting there. It's gravel. It looks like it could be subject to proper landscape. Not landscape, but landscaping, waterproof, permeable driveway space with a boulevard parking space. Take some pressure off the parking on the street, which I said is extremely under pressure. It has been for years, and this just makes it worse. So I'm asking for that consideration to maintain the 3rd parking spot. At least it gives one spot off the street parking that will probably be used all the time by the tenants of the 3 dwellings. I'd also like to know why wasn't the secondary suites built to the bylaw standards? Why is it that all the properties that come under this type of intensification and redevelopment in our area, driving the prices and taxes and everything else up in the area, why can't it be maintained to the standard? Why is there always an exception or requirement for variance when it's pretty clear what the space is? That's my summary. So I think that you should consider the fact that the unit's already built, and we need the 3rd parking spot. Thank you.
Yes. Yes, I will. I mean, we're talking about the heart of downtown Queen West. I can't imagine that it's not expected that there is going to be intensification, and this is fully aligned with municipal policies in terms of increasing densification in this city. The creation of rental suites, which are at a complete deficit right now. I think the application works in conjunction with these motives. With regards to parking, again, I can't stress enough that most tenants living in the area would be more than likely reliant on public transit and not necessarily have a vehicle, particularly in this case for a basement unit. To the point that Mr. Vanderhoeven has made about the basement being listed, it was in fact listed at one time, but that listing was pulled. It was never thought to try to pursue having a tenant there without first getting this approval. It was a bit of a premature assumption that we were going to have the approval until it was brought to light that we were marginally over the maximum permitted. In any case, yeah, those are my arguments. I mean, yes, there is a tremendous amount of development going on. The mention of construction starts and stops is over the past year, largely due to the pandemic as well. I think that was a natural repercussion that could not be avoided, and it's not particular to this particular site at all. It's, as Mr. Vanderhoeven said, there's several going on. I do sympathize with the neighbors and the fact that there is this intensification happening. But again, if you live in the downtown core, it is part of city life. There is no intention to have very transient residents come and go. The hope is always, and the owner is a very responsible landlord who vets his tenants quite carefully. And it is the hope that he finds tenants that are long-term as much as possible. And that's essentially it. So I don't see anything about the application that works against the neighborhood. I think if anything, it is completely aligned with what would be expected by the neighborhood and the residents.
I wonder, could either the applicant or the person in opposition clarify where the third parking space that was referred to currently exists? I gather there are two parking spaces under the laneway suite, and then I assumed from the presentation that somewhere on the lot there's a third parking space, and I'm wondering, is it in the area that is on the site plan designated for proposed landscaping?
Yes, I'm sorry. Can we put that the site plan up just for a moment? I'm having trouble accessing mine. Thank you. There was obviously a right-of-way shared with the neighboring property to the north that took you to the rear. The spot was generally perceived to be at the front of the building. I don't think there was ever any kind of provisions made with the landscaping in place to have a third parking spot at the rear there. It was at the front of the house originally.
So it was a front yard parking.
I'm sorry to interrupt. It's still, I should clarify that it still exists. I'm just getting some notifications from the owner. He says that the space at the front of the house is still in existence.
Okay, but it's not a legally recognized parking space. It's in the area that you've got listed as existing landscaping in the front yard. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Chair, maybe I'll just start. First of all, just want to acknowledge the speaker's concerns that were raised. They're important, and I do note there's another letter of concern in the file, mostly about construction noise and disruption to the community. And these are legitimate concerns. But having said that, I do take the applicant's point about location. This is virtually a downtown area, an area in high demand. The housing stock is large. It is usually suited to being made into rental accommodation. We are in a situation where the city is in dire need of rental. And I think on the whole, this is a worthwhile application. I'm not concerned about the parking, although I do acknowledge that it is an issue in this neighborhood and many. But the variants being proposed, quite frankly, are relatively minor. And in that context, I'm prepared to support this application.
Yes, I am.
Hi, yes, my name is Mike De Oliveira. I'm here representing 155 Manning Avenue, and I'm with Replacement Design located at 911 Davenport Road.
No, just a quick question. It is a semi. Is the adjoining semi 153? Is that?
That's correct. Yes.
So the adjoining semi is supportive.
Yes, they are in support, and 159 is a rental. That's why we don't necessarily have a letter from them. But 153 that's connected is in support of our application.
Could you clarify, is 157 in support? Because your addition goes back quite a bit further than theirs, and I didn't see support from them. Have I missed it?
Yeah, there actually isn't a 157. Oddly enough, it goes from 155 to 159. That's why I mentioned 159 is actually a rental property. The owners don't actually live there. So that's why we don't have any letters from them, but they had no comments for or
Okay,
against.
thank you very much. So that's what we've got is 157 on the drawings we have. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, Chair, I think there's no opposition to this one, right? So I think, yeah, and this looks like a fairly modest proposal. I was originally concerned about the. I see that planning staff have indicated that they're supportive, provided that the condition that it be restricted only to the first floor addition, and I think that is quite satisfactory. I'm prepared to move approval of this application subject to that condition.
Morning. My name is Cyril Foch. I'm the designer and agent for that application, and we would like to request a deferral. We recognize that a deferral should remain an exception. We were informed of the assistant planner's final decision last Wednesday. We also became aware of some of the neighbors' disapproval that same day. We searched notice. It didn't leave us the chance to address some of the concerns. We'd like to discuss some change to the current application with the neighbors and community planning. We have already agreed with the assistant planner to review those changes when she's back tomorrow, actually. That's
Yes, I am here. I would prefer to hear the application and to not defer.
I would like to hear it today. Can you hear me? Okay, I would like to hear the application today and disapprove.
I would like to hear the application today and not defer.
I would like to hear the application today and not defer.
To hear the application today.
To hear the application today and not defer.
I would like to hear the application today and not defer.
Mr. Chairman, the residents have taken time from their day to prepare for the hearing and to attend. They obviously have their positions ready to proceed. We've got detailed recommendations from planning and others. I don't see an advantage in this case in a deferral, and therefore I would like to bring forward a motion that we not defer the application, but that we hear it in its current form today.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Can I ask Bram to show a presentation? Yeah. So we are proposing to build a third floor rear addition, enclosing an existing balcony on the second floor, and remodel the interior of an existing 2.5 story house. The proposed addition will create some additional space for the growing family. So we trigger some variances. I'll focus my presentation on the main ones, the setbacks, the floor space index, and lastly, the building and main wall height. So if we go to slide number 2, exactly, if you could zoom to the highlighted parts. So as you can see, the zoning bylaw allow to build an addition with the same side yard setback as the existing house. So we are potentially compliant at 0.12. The proposed side yard setback is at 0.08, and it's a technical variance caused by a requirement from the Ontario Building Code for continuous insulation. That's why we trigger only 4 centimeters from what we allowed. And associated with that, as you can see on top, we also trigger a roof eaves setback variance, item number 8. The roof only overhang the new wall proposed of 4 centimeters as well. So it's impossible to meet the requirement of the 30 centimeter minimum distance to the lot line. And if you also go to the slide number 3, you'll see that the proposed eaves match the existing eaves. So now if we go to the FSI, item number 3 and slide 7, please. I want to highlight first that there's a distinction at the two row at the bottom. It's highly misleading because we have to include the existing basement in the calculation of the FSI, because the actual definition of a basement has changed in 2018 and requires us to do so. To clarify, the basement is well below grade and the ground floor is typical of other neighbors' house. If we were to only count the above grade floor area, as it should have been the case, the proposed FSI is only 1.08. For that reason, it's already impact the reason of the massing. And second, to the same thing related to the FSI, as you can see, the footprint of the addition between the existing and the proposed on the third floor area is quite small, 768 square feet, so equates 26% of the FSI. The existing house is also already over at 0.78. And now if we move to slide number 8, I listed almost more than 20 projects within a kilometer radius with a similar FSI. That's been between 0.9 and 1.1 and approved by the committee. And then if we move to the height variances, you can see on slide number 9, yeah, we can pass to exactly. We maintain the front of the house and we keep the roof, and we only build toward the rear addition. We only match the existing roof height, which is 10.42. So it's only also 42 centimeter over the one allowed. This house is also a standard typology in the Parkdale I Park neighborhood. If we go to slide number 10, okay, so as you can see, the proposed addition is well set back and it will not be seen from the street. That's, and we also believe that the massing is appropriate because we are compliant for all the other factors for massing. That means the setback, the building length and depth. And for that reason, we believe that the proposed addition is appropriate and desirable.
We do not hear what you're saying.
Can't hear you, Chair. I wonder, Chair, excuse me, I wonder if I could just ask the applicant a quick question before we get. I know we've got a lot of people scheduled to speak and we're interested in hearing those concerns. Given that, I just wanted to ask the applicant whether, obviously the application was circulated, but did you have any discussions, conversations with any of the neighbors in the surrounding area at all?
We did, for example, with the immediate neighbor to the south, and they did not have issue with the proposal. And as they should be the most concerned, for example, from the privacy concern. And if you go back to the third story addition, that's where the loggia is located.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I would like to clarify, my brother Gabriel is a separate speaker. He registered separately and should be given the opportunity to speak at in an additional 5 minutes. Yes, he's registered to speak on behalf of my mother, Dimitra Fotiu, and so she does not speak English, and so he is her representative in this, and he registered to speak separately, so he should be afforded the 5 minutes as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Catherine Orr. I am a resident of 371 Durie Street. My residence is the home that is directly to the north of the proposed renovation. So I want to make it clear that our neighbor did nothing to speak to me or my mother about this renovation, and I disagree that the neighbors to the south are most affected. I believe our home is significantly impacted by this proposal, and I will give you my reasons why. First of all, I strongly contest the fact that the variance requested are minor. The permitted floor space index for the additions to the rear of the house more than double the allowable. Currently, the area of the lot is a max of 0.69. They are proposing to go to 1.51. This is almost double. The renovation is not minor in this respect. And you can see in my photo number 1, I took a photo of the 3 homes in question. The center home is the 369 home. My home is the one to the right. You can clearly see this home towers above both homes on either side. So it is not a minor thing that they're requesting. I also believe that the maximum permitted height, they're requesting an additional 0.5 meters, but the height of the exterior main walls will exceed the maximum permitted by almost 1/3. So they're going from 7.5 to almost 10 meters, which is, again, not minor in my opinion. The consequence of this, there are 2 of them. First of all, considerable loss of light to the inside of our home. Our wall to the south, there are 5 windows on that wall. The fact that that wall is going to be extended above the allowable, at the moment we have very little light as it is. To allow that wall to go any higher will basically extinguish what we've got right now. I'd like you to look at photo number 2. This shows the view between the 2 homes. You can see clearly the little space that is there above, and the fact that the eaves will extend beyond that. That house is now currently at the property line. If the eaves overhang, you can clearly see how that will diminish significantly the very little light we have on that side of the house. In addition, there will be a loss of overshadowing and a loss of light at the back of our home. The proposed dwelling is located 0.08 meters from our lot line, which is 1/3 less than the allowable currently. So we are at the moment worried about losing light on the back of the house as well. The wall that is currently in place will be extended the additional 2.5 meters. So again, we feel this is far from minor, and if you can look at photos 3 and 4, photo 3 is the current wall. And now I did color in on photo 4. I know it's a little bit excessive, but I wanted to indicate how that will basically be a straight wall, straight up with a flat roof. This is our tiny deck. We don't have enough light as it is. To have that wall extended to that extent and brought over as a flat roof with the eaves overhanging is completely unacceptable and will impact our enjoyment of our home in many respects. I also want to question the idea of the staff report. The official plan talks about neighborhoods, and I believe that yes. Okay, so this home is not in line with the neighbors, the homes in the area. I would also cite privacy concerns. The house will literally tower over our home, and there will be a significant impact and direct sight lines into our home as well as to our privacy. I believe these variances are nothing there's nothing minor about them. And in conclusion, I wholeheartedly object to this project, and I respectfully ask that you deny it.
No.
Yes, I am. Good morning, committee chair, committee panel members, and participants. My name is Gabriel. I'm sorry. My apologies. My name is Gabriel Fatiu. I represent my 85-year-old mother on this application. I will be speaking on behalf of my 85-year-old mother, who has a language barrier and who is the homeowner at 371 Durie Street. My mother is the immediate neighbor to the north and who is most affected by the 9 variances we are meeting about today. Please consider my words this morning as her words. Incidentally, she is listening on this WebEx at the moment. My mother is one of the oldest residents of Bloor West Village. She has lived at 371 Durie Street since 1963. That's most of her life. She may be the best person at this hearing to be able to share with you what is best for our neighborhood and community. My mother has seen many transitions of the neighborhood over the past 58 years. She has seen families and local businesses grow. She has seen our community become safer, and she has also seen many impersonal changes to the neighborhood that have caused her and our family great distress. The distress relates to our homes in the community growing beyond what is allowable within our zoning bylaws. Her concerns relate to the 9 minor variances which, in her opinion, are not minor. She has stressed to me that the existing home in its current state is already exceeding many variances from the last major construction of that property that occurred back in 2002. At that time, we were not offered the opportunity to speak or express our views because the home was constructed without the proper approvals and there was no hearing. My mother does not want history to repeat itself. My mother's concerns are the following. Number 1, the disproportionate size of the home compared to most other homes in the neighborhood. This home will exceed more than 2 times the allowable permitted area within our bylaws. The average size home in our neighborhood is between 1,800 and 2,200 square feet, not over 4,000 square feet. Number 2, this application is approved. If this application is approved, the new roof line will extend 27.5 feet to the rear of the property at a height of over 34 feet for the entire length. To put this in perspective, the length of the new roof line is 2/3 the length of my mother's entire home. The sheer size of the addition will leave my mother in the shade and block out her sunlight from her bedroom windows. In fact, all of her windows to the south and east will be blocked if this project is allowed to happen. Number 3, the submitted architectural drawings fail to identify or remedy the existing encroachment of the front retaining wall. The retaining wall is currently 1/2 meter onto my mother's side of the property line. My mother asks the committee for consideration to deny this application for a minor variance for the following reasons. The 9 variances are not minor, they're major. The proposal for construction is not desirable or appropriate for the densely populated area. The general zoning bylaws and codes are not maintained. The official plan speaks to fitting within a neighborhood and providing adequacy of light and privacy. The construction of this home fails to meet this and many aspects within the Toronto official plan. And number 5, the Toronto community planning staff recommend that the application be refused. In closing, while my mother's objections mentioned might be difficult to understand or measure or afford her any empathy, she asked that this committee think of the few remaining seniors living in Bloor West Village and the many pre-seniors and younger families that will be unable to fall in love with Bloor West as she did back in 1963. This project should not be allowed to proceed for the very reason of the existing variances from 2002 and the 9 new variances existing today. Zoning bylaws were written and created to ensure that we live harmoniously with our neighborhoods and with our neighbors. Exceeding zoning bylaws destroys our neighborhoods and our relationships with our neighbors. Right-sizing the community is what's paramount. Creating a suburban-sized home with over 4,100 square feet of floor space in the middle of a densely populated community is seriously objectionable. My mother asked the committee for empathy and to deny this application. Thank you. No.
Yes, hello. My name is Dan Adler. I live at 380 Durie Street. Yeah, I do not want to repeat what the previous speakers have said. I felt like the previous speakers' concerns are valid ones, and I agree with them. I just want to simply state that what's being proposed, in my opinion, is not compatible with the character of the neighborhood. Thank you.
My name is Scott Lenny. I live at 382 Durie. Thank you, Gabriel and Kathy. I thought your points were all exactly what I was going to talk about. I just wanted to make sure that we're all aware of the official plan for Toronto communities. Is that physical changes to our established neighborhoods, such as Durie Street, must be sensitive, gradual, and generally fit the existing physical character. None of which I believe is what's happening now, especially in light of the fact that we didn't get to talk about this back in 2002. So we're talking about it now, and I'm hoping that the committee will deny this application. Thank you very much.
Hi, Tom Parkin, 384 Durie Street. Thank you. Good morning. My wife and I moved to Durie Street in Bloor West Village in 1994, and we had no idea how lucky we were. This is a very successful neighborhood in almost every way, where neighbors are friends and kids grow up together. It's a neighborhood's designation under Toronto's official plan, and that is true in every possible way, I believe. It is, as Toronto officials plan would say, a neighborhood of certain physical character, built in the 1920s, brick and mortar, mostly 2 stories, though some single level homes originally, sitting on 25-foot frontages and literally inches from house to house, mostly with welcoming front porches. It is, of course, let's not pretend that 25-foot lots are islands of privacy. And if that is what you're seeking from a home, then, Durie Street is probably not the street for you. But what is incredibly valuable in this street is the sense of community that living close to your neighbors has. But with that comes this idea that we try and build those little nooks of privacy that we care about, and that we respect them in our neighbors. And that's kind of the unspoken deal of this street. We're lucky to have yards in backyards where we can enjoy the sunshine, where we can have, even in the city, a little spot of private enjoyment, where we can eat a meal and nobody's peering over us, and have the sunshine on us, or maybe just lie on the deck. Why not? Why shouldn't we have that from the house that we own? Neighborhoods, according to our official plan, are physically stable areas. And our official plan says the stability of our neighborhood's physical characteristics is one of the keys to Toronto's success. This is a successful neighborhood. This is successful. And the official plan points out that while communities experience constant social and demographic change, which is very true of Durie Street, the general physical characteristic of Toronto's residential neighborhoods endure. My wife and I raised our 3 daughters here, and the proposed development of 396 Durie doesn't affect our yard, it doesn't affect our sunshine or our privacy. But from living here, I know how valuable these things are. So when I became aware of the proposal for 369, I wasn't concerned for us. But of course, I did think about what if. What if neighbors moved beside us and proposed the same? A 30-foot wall that blocked our little patch of sunshine with a balcony that peered over my summer dining room table. And if I didn't want that for me, then how could I want that for someone else? So here I am. The official plan says physical changes to our neighborhoods must be sensitive, gradual, and fit an existing physical character. A key objective of the plan is that new development respect and reinforce the general physical patterns of the neighborhood. And that's where I think that this proposal just goes too far. The proposal is simply too massive for the lot. Durie Street isn't stuck in 1922. There's dumpsters on this street almost all the time. People do additions. Both of my neighbors have done additions, both sides. They fit. They were gradual. They were sensitive. They talked to me about these things. even considering that we have no side yards here. We are right beside each other. But those additions don't push up and out massively. And they take nothing from my enjoyment of the property and they add to theirs. So what is there for me to object to? Nothing. But that really isn't the case in this idea. It's terrific that the residents of 369 want to renovate and add to their own enjoyment, but it's terrible, and I think it's unacceptable that the neighbors are being asked to pay for it with the loss of their privacy and sunlight. And we know how valuable that is, so let's put it in starker terms, crasser terms. On this size lot, a proposal of this mass adds to the value of the property at 369, but it reduces the value of the properties beside it. And in the crassest way, this is in fact a transfer of wealth from the smallest houses on the street to the owners of the largest house on the street. I don't think that was what was intended as a minor variation. We have already seen the city planning department condemn this proposal as simply too massive at nearly twice the permitted size. It's not a minor variance. It's not consistent with a sensitive and gradual change to neighborhoods envisioned by the official plan, and that it's your job to respect. So with the city and with our neighbors, I think this committee must conclude that this variance just cannot be granted. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. This is Justin Hollins at 394 Durie Street. Been living in this neighborhood since 1999, and I love this neighborhood. It's a great place to live. The houses are very similar to each other, and as previously mentioned, they're very close to each other as well. So when one house, expands, other houses commonly suffer. So in this case, in this particular case, the size of the additions, the variances, do not correspond to the character of the neighborhood. Blocks, as we heard from the neighbors at 371, this new construction will block the light in the backyard in their backyard and others. And of course, there are, I think, privacy concerns when you build so high up. And for these reasons, I believe the proposal should be declined. Thank you.
Thank you very much. My name's Hillary Inwood, and I live at 397 Durie Street. I've also been living on the street for well over 20 years. I'd just like to register my opposition to the request for variances for 369 Durie Street. With properties being so close together in Blair's West Village, construction of oversized houses on small properties causes ongoing issues for all the neighbors and specifically for the neighboring properties. So I can fully support the concerns from the speakers, Gabe and Kathy from 371 Durie Street. Their concerns about what might happen with their property have been fully realized on our property as we went through a similarly very large addition to the property to the north of us. And we certainly would not want any other Toronto citizens to have to experience what we've gone through with an oversized property next door. I want to speak specifically to variants 1 and 2. We can say that living next to a large house creates not only a significant visual block for the neighboring properties, but it casts shadows on neighboring yards, and it has absolutely caused a huge loss of our privacy because its windows and its third floor deck look directly over onto our backyard. We have no privacy in our backyard anymore, and also into the windows of our house, which again erodes the privacy inside our house. We have to have window coverings to ensure our privacy because of their extension. We'd also like to speak to variance 8, which is extension of the roof eaves to the north side lot line. This same variance was implemented on our neighbor's property, and it has caused significant water damage to our property because their eaves troughs routinely overflow in rainstorms onto our roof and onto the north wall of our house. People have spoken already about how close our houses are, and because of the way in which they built the addition, the ongoing water damage to our property cannot be addressed because we have no means of accessing repair to our own eaves or the side wall of our property because theirs was built so close. We'd also like to speak to variances 5 and 6 about the loss of soft landscaping with the plans as they currently stand. We have experienced the same situation with the property next door. With building a large house on a small lot, this developer had also covered a large portion of the front yard with what they deemed a walking pad, which is in fact an illegal parking pad, which is now common in Bloor West Village. This has caused flooding on our property, and it also causes harm to the environment. So there's no doubt that increased hard landscaping of housing lots is contributing to greater runoff into our sewer systems and of course into our local watershed, and that's bringing a higher level of pollution into the water that we eventually have to drink from Lake Ontario. So this variance for less soft landscaping should not be approved. And then finally, I just want to speak to variance 3 about the increased density. This sets a very bad precedence for other properties in the neighborhood, and I don't think we should be asking and using properties that have been setting very bad precedences to set more precedents for houses in the neighborhood. Proportionality of house size to others on the street, if it's allowed to go ahead, affects not only the aesthetics and the functionality of the neighborhood, it results in a loss of human scale in the neighborhood, and it likely would impact negatively on the walkability of our street. The increased density also means that there's a strong likelihood of more people in that house, and as the children get older, more cars on the street. Combine that with the loss of curbside space from the walking pad, I'm putting that in air quotes, it just means that there's less available parking spots for everybody on this block. So in summary, these homeowners are not requesting minor variances, but major ones, and they are layering on top of unapproved variances that were illegally created by the previous homeowners. So just really piling bad on top of bad. They are unwittingly applying to set a new precedence for huge dwellings on lots that were never intended to support homes of this size, impacting not only on their direct neighbors, but on all neighbors on this street and in Bloor West Village as a whole. Bloor West is often cited by Toronto City Planning Division as an example of what the city can be. It's a neighborhood focused on the people living here, not on the size or ostentatiousness of the houses. It's a vibrant, inviting, human-scaled, walkable community, and it's highly ironic that some property owners who, granted, have paid enormous sums of money to pay for properties in the neighborhood are now choosing to destroy the very qualities for which they have moved into this neighborhood for in the first place. So we request that the application of these variances is denied in alignment with the recommendations made by the city planning staff. Thank you so much.
I am indeed. I thought you forgot about me. Fantastic. Thank you. My name is Jeff Ewell. I live at 377 Durie Street, which is 4 houses north of the house we're discussing. I first of all, I guess, want to thank the Committee of Adjustment for the opportunity to speak. And I also want to highlight the help that Jacob Cockerell gave us in terms of getting ourselves organized. None of us have ever done this before, so kudos to him for helping us through the process. I won't go through the planning report. I agree with everything it says about it not being minor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I do want to go into a couple of, I guess, minor points. And before that, perhaps suggest that, we're not a group, our little ad hoc group in opposition is not a raving group of NIMBYists. We're all for development. We've all done renovations on our house, to one of the other speakers in opposition who've indicated, there's always a season does not go by where there isn't a dumpster in front of a house. So we're all for the improvement to the neighborhood. This goes well above and beyond. What I do want to talk about, though, is a couple of points, details in a sense. One of the things I do want to dispute with the homeowner or his agent is Prentice Glazier, who lives at 367 Durie Street, was actually in opposition. Unfortunately, he couldn't sign the petition before it was submitted, and he didn't put his name in to speak. But he is in firm opposition of the extension or expansion of the house. His main concerns is the lack of drainage that happens at that house. Now, there's a big roof area, but what you don't see is that the so-called softscaping is actually astroturf. So a lot of water ends up draining into the what he calls his lake in the backyard every time it rains. And of course, the homeowner is going to be extending the hardscaping around the garage, which will further exacerbate the situation as well. A couple other points I want to make, and you know, in terms of, I don't believe there's any other neighbors that the homeowners had tried to speak to. You know, they seem to be a very private family, and they have not tried to integrate with any of the families. So I believe they have not tried to consult the other owners at all. You know, just for point of order, the homeowners did say we'd like to talk about it and never came back to discuss it. But one of the things I want to talk about in some of the other documentation I sent, I sent a petition as well, but there's a document that I want to talk about disputing the homeowner's failure to meet the intent of posting in a prominent place their public notice sign. They sent an affidavit, they sent the photo, which was zoomed in and frankly deceptive in my opinion about being able to read it. I posted my photo taken from the street using no zoom whatsoever. And other than a little bit of a green square, you can't make out, there it is there. You know, if you didn't know what it was, and let's face it, none of the homeowners know what it is, it's absolutely unreadable. You'd not only have to trespass on the property, but you'd actually have to go up on their steps or on their front porch to actually read the sign. So I don't believe they've met the intent of actually providing proper notice to the other people around. I know that the notices are only sent out to 60 folks within 60 meters. And I'm not sure if that actually applies to Colbeck and Beresford, which are to the south and to the east of the property. Also, want to point out the accuracy of using Google Street View as a design tool. No, I won't get into some of the details. That's another letter that I sent the same day. Yes. I'm awfully close to it. I just want to say that using Google Street View, you know, scholarly articles as well as Google themselves make no claims of the accuracy, and they you know, it's a for fun tool. It's not a design tool, and accuracy is up to 2 to 3 meters off. So I believe that the views that they gave were not accurate to what is in reality. And I did post a photo showing from my roof, showing actually how prominent the roof scape is. 369 is that big tall roof that towers over every other roof now, and it's only going to get bigger. Thank you.
So first, if can we show the third floor plan? That will help for. It's not part of this one. It's part of the architectural plan submitted for the application. If you go to the third floor, you could please zoom in a bit. So the applicant toward the north is 371, and the one to the south is 367. The original intent from the homeowners was no balcony or no loggia at all, but because there's a regulation to create an area of refuge from the Ontario Building Code, we have to provide that space. We try to minimize it. We also place it toward the south, and it's indent in the structure. So as you can see, the possibility to see over the neighbor is limited. The same way, there's no window created on both sides. You see, we are only facing toward the back. So we also would be flexible in terms of the loggia toward the south to actually place a privacy screen toward the south side if it helps in terms of privacy. Then in terms of massing, that's also included with the assistant planner report. Our actually notice is irrelevant in terms of the variance number from the main wall height. We actually can benefit from a grandfather clause. If you go back to slide slide number 9 on the other PDF, the south side elevation, as you can see the front, if you zoom in toward the middle and the existing roof, you can see that the main wall height is already higher than the proposed one. So we actually benefit from a grandfather clause. So the argument from the neighbors and as well the assistant planner should be disregarded in terms of the side exterior main wall height. Then for the density, the 1.51. As I already explained, in terms of having to include the basement, some of previous decisions from the T-Lab as well made a distinction between having included the basement or not. That's something that should be considered in terms of setting precedents for 1.51. That it should be include the mention including the basement. And then for the third point, for example, of the assistant planner, she mentioned that no decision were found within this neighborhood. If you go to the map, I think, slide number 8, please, you can see that the area considered was only the blue one, which you call the immediate context. But if you go a little bit to the north or toward the south, there's two decisions approved by the committee for 289 DURIE Street and 293 DURIE Street, where the roof were at 0 and the height of main wall on the side or either at the back were either 10 or 9.63 meters. So that's for the privacy massing. In terms of softscaping, we can go up to the slide number 4. As you can see, most of the remaining, the existing remains. We only slightly changed the stairs. That's why we lose this 2.5 over the 50 or 75% required. So it's really minimal. And I'd like to point out that other things should be disregarded in terms of the history, in terms of what happened in 2002. And the homeowners were not responsible of that fact. And what else? There's also mentioned not respecting the character of the neighborhood. We actually proposed for the front porch to replace the stucco with some brick veneer, some siding that will be more coherent from the rest of the houses. And I guess there were so many points. Yeah. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, the submissions from the neighborhood were excellent, and I appreciate them. They helped clarify some issues and reinforce others. I believe that everything that was said by the neighborhood reinforces what the planning department had said. And just to reiterate it, the planning department had concerns with the massing and overall height of the altered dwelling and the potential impact on the existing established streetscape, and they went on to explain why. It is their conclusion, and I share it, that the magnitude and number of the requested variances do not meet the intent of the official plan or the bylaws. And on that basis, I would like to bring forward a motion to not approve this application. I think it is against the neighborhood character, and I think it's against the values that the planning department has ensconced through the official plan and zoning bylaws to allow this type of development to occur, which is in conflict with an established neighborhood character.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind weighing in. I would agree with Carl. You know, I look at all these the variances, and in certain contexts, some of the variances or the magnitude of the variances are appropriate given where they are. But in this case, I go through all the variances. The one that strikes and stands out mostly with me is FSI, and a rather substantial increase from the allowed FSI, but also from the existing house, which is frankly already large and has already gone through an addition several years ago. And you know, that kind of addition, while other things don't appear too terribly bad, does in fact, I think, trip over into the category of being extraordinarily large for the neighborhood, for the street. It does contribute to massing. You know, we sometimes and often rely on the expertise of city staff, and here we have a situation where staff are recommending, as Carl pointed out, refusal of that for very good reasons. And in my experience, we have to have a pretty compelling reason to not consider that expert advice that is given to us. And frankly, I didn't hear anything from the applicant which would overturn or bring into question that professional advice. So for those reasons and all the reasons that Carl mentioned, I similarly will not be supporting this application.
Yeah, I would agree with all of those comments that both my colleagues have mentioned.
So I'm happy to second the motion, Chair. Yeah, I was going to second it.
Good morning. My name is Vijay, and I'm the agent for 22 Bellevue Avenue.
Yeah, I just wanted a clarification under the purpose of the application.
Yeah.
I believe it should be not a detached dwelling, but a semi-detached dwelling.
Yes.
Yeah, it's hello, it's Yan Bing. I agree with it. I think it will provide more housing for the community and the city, so it's good for healthy housing market. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is a very modest request for a small increase in floor space index. I don't see that that increase has any detrimental impacts on either the immediate neighbors or the neighborhood. I would like to bring forward a motion of approval without condition.
That's not unfortunate about, guys.
Yes, this is Terrell Wong. I'm the agent for the applicant. Okay, the design that you have before you is not really changing on the outside of the building except for the addition of 3 fire enclosure windows on the north facade. The reason for the variance on that wall is because the existing wall is 18 inches or 45 centimeters away from the property line or less. And 2 of the windows will be fiberglass. And then the one at the top right, that will be an operable window, but it will have a fire shutter as per code. And that creates another variance as it sticks out into the setbacks on that property line. And then I believe the third is a parking variance, which is created by the fact that the owner wishes to have 2 rental apartments in the basement, which are shown on the basement plan. The existing side door on the south side is the entrance to those units. We have talked to the neighbors. The owners of the building have talked to the neighbors subsequent to the letter as well. One of the concerns in the letter was that they were afraid that the windows on that side would have a lower fire rating than the rest of the wall. But we assured the owner that because of the way the building code is written, a 1-hour fire rating will be required for the 2 fire enclosure windows that don't have a shutter, which is greater by 15 minutes than the requirement for the wall, as well as the shutter is part of the insurance of the home and will be inspected as per the insurance yearly. And it also meets the 45-minute rating, of course, of the wall on that. Also, the building on the north side is separated from the building to the north by an existing driveway. So the distance between it and the next building is substantially larger. And those are really the only changes. If you wanted to know in regards to the last committee of adjustment, this building is, I think, a little bit smaller than the original committee of adjustment. And everything physical on the building except for those 3 windows has will not change based on this application.
Yep. So from what I understand, in 2016, this site received committee of adjustment variance approvals. And so I'm assuming the house has been built. And so what's happening with the side yard setback? Was it missed in the last committee application in 2016, or what actually has changed?
Okay, so a wall is allowed to be 18 inches or 45 centimeters away from the property line without, or less, without any enclosure windows. As soon as you put a window on that wall or a fire enclosure on that wall, it is no longer allowed to be in that location. You have to ask for a variance. So as of right, in 2016, it was before I was the architect on the project. My understanding is that they hadn't needed, the building was slightly different in that design. We've actually, I think it's actually a little bit smaller than it was then. But they had asked for, they didn't have any openings on that side at that time. And I think it was more of an misunderstanding of what was required for committee of adjustment. It's very confusing when it's the wall that is going for the variance when there's no mention of window. We've had many back and forth with Jacob at the City of Toronto Committee of Adjustment, just trying to fully understand where this zoning variance comes from. So the wall is not moving. It's the addition of those 3 windows or fire enclosures that creates the variance for a wall that's already there. And the neighbors have been informed about where the windows are, and I believe they've talked about it. Hopefully they're here to discuss it as well. But my understanding from the letter is their main concern was a fire rating. So.
Yes, I did. Could you go to the second floor plan? Is this an existing condition? Is the deck already there?
Yes, so these drawings, except for the windows, have a permit. So the deck has
so-
not been built yet, but it is already there. Yes, like it's already been permitted.
Oh, okay. So my concern has to do with the fact that the deck projects beyond both of your neighbors, and it would seem to me appropriate to have screening on the north and south side of the deck. What I was trying to clarify was whether if the deck had been in existence for some period of time and it hadn't created any problems, then I wouldn't be as concerned. But since it's a project deck, I could see some privacy issues along the north and the south side, and I was wondering if you would be open to putting an opaque screen on the north and south side of the deck.
That is certainly a possibility for sure. Yep, I wouldn't be against that.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, it's Nikki here. Hi, how are you? I mean, yeah, I think everything's been addressed as has been discussed. Our main concerns were obviously the three north side windows, mostly from a fire safety perspective. And as you mentioned, the original 2016 design did not have any windows on that side, and the original structure, I believe, had just a few like below ground sort of basement light windows, and I think one for the kitchen. But yeah, we were just, making sure from a safety perspective mostly, and the fact that, secondarily, the windows do look into our existing south-facing wall windows. So from a privacy perspective, there was a little bit of concern there. I know one of the windows is a frosted bathroom window. The owners have let us know, and that's okay. But yeah, those were sort of our main concerns. Fire safety, and I know they've addressed that. And secondarily was privacy. Nope, just me.
Oh.
Well, if there are any concerns in terms of privacy on the deck, hopefully for the screening, I know that's not on the agenda today, but one of the members mentioned it. We can talk about that, and certainly once the windows are actually in, having a first person seeing if we need to put some frosting on any of the windows, that we can certainly consider that as a neighbor. The intention is to bring light in and not to look at the neighbors. So I wanted to make sure that they understood that for sure, and that we are taking care of both the fire and the privacy issues, if there are any.
Mr. Chairman, I believe this to be a reasonable proposal. I don't see anything about it that is a potential problem with either neighbors or the neighborhood, with the exception of the privacy from the deck, which I have some concerns about, which is why I raised the question I did with the architect. I'd like to move approval of the application with only one condition, and that be the opaque screening be 1.5 meters in height, be provided along the north and the south edges of the second floor deck. Yes, that's correct.
Yes, hello, Jamie Higgins. I'm the agent of the owners.
Chair, I'll just do this one. This is fairly straightforward and an obvious good thing in terms of providing fire access out of the commercial building. So I would move approval. There are no conditions.
Hi, yes, I'm here. Yes, that's right. Joe Dome, 1101 Steeles Avenue West, agent for the owner.
Yeah, I believe that this is a very minor addition. It's fairly small, and so I would move approval of the variance with no conditions.
Good afternoon. I'm here. My name is Amar Roba from YEJ Studio on behalf of the owner.
Yeah, once again, I believe this is a minor, fairly minor variance. The increase in coverage is fairly small, and so I would move approval of the variance with no condition.
Yes, I am. Hello? Oh, hi. Yes, I'm Enzo Lacasano from Arch DWG. I am the agent for the owner. Yes, we actually submitted a cover letter as well, noting all the, I guess there are tweaks that planning requested from us. And based on, yeah, there we go. So the floor space index was reduced because the overhang on the second floor addition, they wanted us to push it back 1 foot back, which reduced the GFA. The roof eave that stays the same. The total coverage of the garage was reduced by 1 foot. Two things. One, we had to maintain the 1 meter setback from the lane, but also we were able to eliminate item number 6, which is the parking space, and brought it in line to the minimum parking requirement by the city. The landscaping is actually existing in the backyard. It's beautifully landscaped with hard and soft materials, with planting beds, which we're not touching at all. That's why we set the garage back to the existing fence line. With regards to the front yard setback, again, we've improved that by moving the second floor addition back 1 foot. So we've actually only got a 1 foot overhang rather than a 2 foot overhang. And that's pretty much it. The impact and the style of housing fits well within the community. Again, planning was very satisfied after going through these minor modifications that they wanted to see on our drawings. That is correct.
The planning department report basically reflects those changes. So if we were to adopt the planning department recommendations, those changes in the variance would be implied. The question that I have is the sixth condition from planning is that the two-story detached dwelling be constructed substantially in accordance with the plans date stamped by the Committee of Adjustment on March the 9th. The drawings that I have in my agenda are from 2020, and I don't see a date stamp of March the 9th. So I'm wondering if the Deputy Secretary Treasurer can confirm that the drawings we have are the ones that planning is referring to, so that if we if we adopted this condition, that we've got the right drawings. Yes, okay. Okay. Okay, thank you very much. That's very helpful. Mr. Chairman, I think the proposal as revised through negotiations with planning is acceptable. I think it meets the 4 tests, and I don't see any negative implications to its approval. So with that in mind, I'd like to move approval of the application subject to the conditions in the planning department report. Excuse me.
Yes, he is. Hello, good afternoon. Yes, Sebastian Miltner, and I'm the owner of 70 Jackman Avenue, and I have with me also Yasso, who's the applicant.
Yeah, so my question is, if there's a way to put up the site plan to show the rear yard area? My question is there a way to increase the amount of soft landscaping in the rear yard? For example, I think there was stonework, stone patio, and so is there a way to change that patio stone to something that would be more permeable, so that would assist in permeability in the rear yard?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. This is Yasso Somalingam, the applicant, on behalf of the owner. What has happened is that when we applied the permit revision for the alterations inside, the whole backyard was with asphalt. So my client changed that asphalt into grass area next to the garage, the existing garage area. And the paving which is there, it's kind of a permeable paving, except the driveway, which is an existing old asphalt driveway which existed for long time. This is basically an existing condition. Only the deck was redone, and that's where they get into the thing. But the deck was built on top of the existing asphalt area, which they converted into kind of a permeable paving. And the rear side next to the garage, the homeowner, he converted into a grass area. So it's improved to the previous conditions for sure. And still it's not meeting the minimum requirement as for the soft landscaping, because the most of the area is covered by the garage in the backyard. Hello? It was built by the previous owner. The current owner got this home only for about in October, last year October. This deck was an existing condition. We are trying to close the file, and that's where we got hit. The minimum landscape requirement for the backyard, the soft landscape required soft landscape is not meeting the condition. Thank you. Sorry. Yes, I'm the authorized agent and applicant on this application, Yasso Somalingam.
I have one, Mr. Chairman. I think Mr. Solomon's suggestion was a very good one, which is, I gather, if I'm putting these words in your mouth, and I hope I got it correctly, that there's a patio, there's a driveway, and then there's a deck, and then there's a lot of paving stone, and there's a little bit of grass. And the permeable paver, the soft landscape provision in the bylaw is to allow for percolation of water into the soil. And his question to you was, is there not any way in which the patio stones could be changed to landscaping, soft landscaping? I don't see that there's a problem with that, but I'm wondering what that would, it would reduce your variance. It would reduce your variance substantially. And I'm wondering what the new variance would be if the patio stones were replaced with soft landscaping.
The backside area, which is 8 feet by 18 feet, which is, hold on a second, let me quickly do the calculation. It's coming about 140 square feet, 145 square feet area. The only thing is that actual the new homeowner bought it in October, but this has been existed for a very long time. The only thing we had to do is that we had to take out all those hard landscaping, which is the stones, and then replace it with the permeable stones. And that will, yes, it will reduce the variance, but I don't know how we can word it there to get this one approved. So I don't know whether planning would be okay to the variance to approve with the condition that the 18 feet 6 inches by 8 feet the patio stone to be replaced with the permeable paving stone.
Chair, I don't know what's there right now. I think I've heard the agent now refer to that as being permeable a couple of times. Can I ask you, is it permeable pavers there now, or are you proposing to put permeable pavers in that portion?
It is not permeable paving. The driveway is an existing driveway in front of the garage, and right. Behind the deck is not a permeable paving. It's a regular paving.
So if you were to request that to either be replaced for soft landscaping or lifted and put permeables in there, would that be something you'd be prepared to do?
If that's the only way to get this one approved, yes, we had to do it. But only my question is that how the wording can be approved here. That's.
Well, if it's permeable pavers, they don't constitute soft landscaping. It's been a bit of a fix that we have put in certain situations. So we could put a condition in that those pavers be replaced with permeable, and then we wouldn't have to change the variance.
Okay. So let's do that way then. We'll change. That means except the driveway, which is an asphalt driveway, we cannot do that one. But anything behind, which is the area, is about 18 feet 6 by 8 feet area behind the deck to be changed to permeable paving.
Carl, I trumped all over your comment. Is that okay with you?
That's fine. I don't want to hold it up while we do calculations. I think we could actually it's Nimrod's idea, and I think it's a good one. I think we could say that area is to be replaced with permeable pavers or soft landscaping. They could still put soft landscaping in. The point is the variance that they've requested, they wouldn't need it at 15%. It would probably be higher, but that doesn't seem to be an issue.
Right.
So I'm back to Nimrod. I think Nimrod, that was an excellent suggestion. I just didn't want to see it lost in the discussion.
No, I'm happy you discuss that further. I would agree with that. So if we could,
Have we lost Nimrod? Mr. Chairman, in the interest of time, might I give it a try? And if Nimrod comes back on, he can tell me if he agrees with the motion, and if not, you can make a decision as to what to do with it. I'd like to move approval of the application, which I don't think poses any real difficulties other than this issue of permeability, and it would be subject to the area designated to be covered with patio stones on the site plan is to be replaced with either soft landscaping or permeable pavers. That's fine.